Sometimes Allah does not change your position in the world. He changes the weight of your inner life. Nothing announces this shift. There is no outward sign, no sudden elevation, no applause. Instead, the heart begins to carry awareness differently. What once passed unnoticed now feels deliberate. What once felt easy now feels measured. The soul is not being pushed forward, it is being drawn inward. Ibn Arabi speaks of a selection that does not arrive through visibility, but through refinement. A choosing that is not recognized by others, and often not even by the one experiencing it at first. It shows itself through quiet separations, restrained desires, and a clarity that does not explain itself. In this reflection, we enter that silent territory, where divine selection leaves no mark on appearance, but reshapes the heart completely. Lesson: one selection often begins with inner reweighting. The first change does not arrive in the form of new events, new people, or visible shifts in life. It arrives as a subtle redistribution of importance within. The outer world may look exactly the same, yet the heart no longer experiences it in the same way. What once demanded attention begins to feel light, almost hollow. What once seemed small or insignificant begins to carry an unexpected gravity. This is not confusion, it is reweighting. Inner reweighting means the heart is being trained to value differently, not according to habit, pressure, or desire, but according to depth. The heart starts noticing how much energy it gives to things that do not return anything meaningful. Conversations that once felt necessary begin to feel excessive. Goals that once felt urgent begin to feel distant. This does not happen because the heart has become lazy or detached, but because it is being recalibrated. This recalibration often feels uncomfortable at first. The heart may wonder why it no longer feels motivated by what used to drive it. It may question whether something is wrong, whether passion has been lost, or whether gratitude has weakened. In reality, the heart is not losing motivation. It is losing misalignment. It is being relieved of weights that were never meant to shape it long term. When inner reweighting begins, time feels different. The heart becomes more aware of how moments are spent. Certain activities begin to feel draining, even if they are harmless. Others feel nourishing, even if they are quiet and uneventful. This is because the heart is no longer measuring value by stimulation or reward. It is measured by resonance. What resonates stays heavy. What does not become light. Another sign of this reweighting is emotional response changing without effort. Situations that once triggered strong reactions now pass with minimal disturbance. Not because the heart has become numb, but because it no longer places importance there. At the same time, moments that once would have been overlooked now leave a deep impression. A sentence, a pause, a realization can linger far longer than expected. The heart is paying attention differently. This shift can create a sense of distance from others, even when relationships remain intact. You may find that shared interests no longer feel shared. The heart is not rejecting people, it is simply responding to a different scale of importance. What others are excited by may no longer move you. What concerns them may not concern you in the same way. This is not superiority, it is divergence. Inner reweighting also affects decision-making. Choices that once felt easy may now feel heavy with consequence. The heart becomes slower, not from fear, but from awareness. It senses that actions now carry more weight internally, even if they appear small externally. This carefulness is not anxiety, it is respect for alignment. Often, this phase brings a quiet seriousness, not sadness, but gravity. The heart senses that life is not merely happening to it, but through it. Responsibility begins to feel internal rather than imposed. The heart becomes more conscious of intention, not because it is trying to be righteous, but because intention has become louder than outcome. Another aspect of inner reweighting is the loss of appetite for excess explanation. The heart no longer feels the need to justify its changes. It stops announcing shifts or seeking permission to evolve. This silence is not secrecy, it is containment. The heart is learning to carry meaning without dispersing it. During this time, the heart may feel misunderstood, even by itself. Old reference points no longer apply, and new ones have not fully formed. This can create uncertainty. But this uncertainty is not emptiness. It is space. Space where new understanding can settle without being rushed. Inner reweighting also alters how the heart experiences success and failure. Success loses its intoxicating effect. Failure loses its crushing power. Both become informative rather than defining. The heart is less interested in outcome and more attentive to orientation. It begins to ask not, "Did this work?" but, "Was this aligned?" One of the quiet signs of this reweighting is that the heart becomes more selective with energy. It no longer tries to be everywhere or available for everything. This selectivity is not withdrawal, it is stewardship. The heart is learning that not all energy should be spent, and not all moments deserve equal attention. This phase can feel isolating if misunderstood, but it is not meant to isolate, it is meant to stabilize. The heart is being given a new, internal center of gravity. Once this center settles, relationships and responsibilities can be re-entered with clarity rather than confusion. Inner reweighting also brings a heightened sensitivity to insincerity. The heart can no longer tolerate pretending, exaggerating, or moving without meaning. What once felt socially acceptable may now feel internally disruptive. This does not mean the heart becomes harsh, it becomes precise. Another subtle sign is that the heart becomes less reactive to praise and criticism alike. Both feel lighter. Praise does not inflate, criticism does not wound as deeply. The heart is no longer anchored to external assessment. Its sense of value is being relocated inward. This relocation is essential. A heart that is chosen quietly cannot depend on outward signals for direction. It must learn to sense weight internally. This sensing becomes the compass. Over time, the heart learns to trust this compass even when it contradicts expectation. Inner reweighting does not announce itself dramatically. It unfolds gradually. You may only notice it in hindsight, realizing that you no longer care about things that once consumed you, and that you now care deeply about things you once ignored. This realization marks the beginning of a different way of being. This is not a loss, it is refined. The heart is not becoming smaller, it is becoming denser with meaning. What remains heavy remains for a reason. What becomes light was never meant to carry you forward. Lesson 2: ease is replaced by precision. Comfort is not always removed, but it stops being the guide. The heart begins to move by accuracy rather than ease. What once felt acceptable now feels slightly off. What once felt harmless now requires consideration. This shift does not come with tension or fear. It comes with alertness. The heart is no longer drifting. It is learning how to place each step carefully. Precision is different from caution. Caution hesitates because it is afraid of making mistakes. Precision moves because it understands consequence. A heart entering this phase does not slow down because it is unsure. It slows down because it sees more. It notices how small choices ripple inwardly. Words are no longer released casually. Silence is no longer accidental. Each movement begins to feel intentional. This change can feel strange at first. The heart may wonder why simple decisions now require reflection, why it can no longer act impulsively, even in matters that seem neutral. This is not rigidity. It is refined. The heart is being taught that not everything needs to be done quickly, and not everything that is easy is correct. One of the earliest signs of this precision is restraint in speech. The heart feels a subtle resistance before speaking unnecessarily, not because speech is wrong, but because it senses that words now carry weight. Even truthful words can feel excessive if they are not needed. The heart begins to value placement over expression. Saying less becomes a form of accuracy. Actions follow the same pattern. The heart no longer fills time just to avoid stillness. Movement becomes purposeful. The heart asks quietly whether an action aligns before committing to it. This does not mean productivity decreases. Often it increases, but it becomes focused rather than scattered. Ease often allows looseness. Precision requires presence. A heart that moves with precision must remain attentive. This attentiveness sharpens awareness of intention. The heart becomes conscious of why it is doing something, not just what it is doing. When intention is unclear, the heart hesitates. This hesitation is not doubt, it is discernment forming. Another sign of this phase is that the heart begins to feel discomfort when acting out of habit. Habitual actions that once felt safe may now feel empty or misaligned. The heart resists repetition without meaning. It wants actions to be alive, not automatic. This resistance can be tiring at first because habit is easier than awareness. But over time, awareness becomes natural. Precision also changes how the heart experiences responsibility. Responsibilities are no longer accepted just because they exist. The heart becomes careful about what it carries. It does not want excess burden, but it also does not avoid obligation. It seeks the correct weight. This balance is delicate, and the heart learns it slowly. The heart may appear distant to others, not because it has withdrawn emotionally, but because it no longer reacts quickly. It listens longer, it responds later. This delay is not disinterest. It is calibration. The heart wants its responses to be true, not immediate. Precision also affects emotional reactions. Emotions still arise, but they are no longer allowed to dictate behavior automatically. The heart observes them before acting. This observation does not suppress feeling, it clarifies it. The heart learns the difference between what is felt and what needs to be done. This clarity can make the heart feel heavier at times, not burdened, but aware. Awareness carries responsibility. When the heart sees more, it cannot pretend it does not. This can make life feel less casual, but it also makes it more honest. Another subtle shift is that the heart becomes less tolerant of exaggeration, both from itself and from others. Overstatement feels disruptive. Dramatic responses feel misaligned. The heart prefers proportion. It wants reactions to match reality, not amplify it. This proportionality brings calm. Precision also reshapes patience. Patience is no longer passive waiting. It becomes an active alignment. The heart waits not because it has no choice, but because moving too soon would be inaccurate. This patience feels grounded rather than strained. The heart begins to sense timing more clearly. It knows when to act and when to remain still, even if it cannot explain why. This sense of timing is not strategic. It is intuitive. It develops because the heart is paying attention inwardly rather than rushing outwardly. Ease often allows distraction. Precision removes it. The heart becomes less interested in what does not contribute to alignment. Entertainment, conversations, and pursuits that once filled space may lose their appeal. This is not moral judgment, it is increasing sensitivity. This sensitivity can initially feel like loss. The heart may miss the lightness it once had, but over time it realizes that what was lost was not peace, but noise. The new calm is quieter, deeper, and more stable. Precision also affects trust. The heart begins to trust that slowing down does not mean falling behind. It learns that accuracy prevents regret. Acting precisely saves energy in the long run, even if it requires restraint in the moment. Another sign of this phase is that the heart becomes less reactive to urgency imposed by others. External pressure loses its power. The heart no longer moves just because something feels pressing. It moves when it feels correct. This independence is subtle but strong. Precision also teaches humility. The heart accepts that it does not need to be everywhere or involved in everything. It becomes comfortable with choosing fewer things and doing them well. This humility is quiet. It does not announce itself. As precision deepens, the heart becomes less forgiving of self-deception. It notices when it tries to justify misalignment. These moments become uncomfortable quickly. This discomfort is corrective. It keeps the heart honest. Ease allows drifting. Precision creates direction. The heart begins to feel guided internally, even without external signs. This guidance is not loud. It does not command. It suggests. The heart learns to listen. This phase is not permanent intensity. It is training. Over time, precision becomes natural. The heart no longer feels strained by awareness. It moves smoothly, accurately, and calmly. When ease is replaced by precision, the heart is not being restricted. It is being trusted. Trusted to carry awareness without collapsing into fear. Trusted to act without needing comfort as a crutch. This trust marks a deepening of the inner path. The heart is no longer being carried by ease. It is learning how to walk. Lesson 3. Certain doors close without conflict. Separation often happens without drama. There is no argument, no betrayal, no clear event that forces distance. Instead, a door that was once open simply loses its pull. The heart does not feel rejected, and it does not feel victorious. It feels finished. This quiet ending is one of the clearest signs of subtle redirection. What makes this form of closing unique is the absence of resistance. In the past, endings may have required explanation, confrontation, or emotional struggle. Here, none of that arises. The heart does not feel compelled to defend itself or convince anyone. It recognizes, without needing proof, that something no longer belongs. This recognition arrives gently, but it is firm. Often, these closures are internal before they are external. The heart disengages first. Conversations still happen, routines still exist, but the inner attachment loosens. Interest fades without resentment. Expectation dissolves without disappointment. The heart is not hardening, it is releasing weight it no longer needs to carry. This release can feel unsettling at first. The heart may wonder why it is no longer invested in what once mattered deeply. It may question whether gratitude has been lost or loyalty weakened. In reality, the heart is responding to alignment. What once fit no longer does, and the heart is honest enough to acknowledge it without creating conflict to justify the change. One of the signs that a door is closing quietly is that effort begins to feel forced. What once flowed naturally now requires energy to maintain. The heart notices this effort and does not fight it. It stops pushing. When pushing stops, the door reveals itself as already closed. Another sign is that clarity replaces explanation. The heart no longer feels the need to articulate why it is stepping back. It knows that explanation would only create confusion or unnecessary friction. Silence becomes the most accurate response. This silence is not avoidance. It is respect for a transition that does not need commentary. Quiet closures often involve relationships, roles, or aspirations. A role you once identified with may begin to feel constricting. A path you once pursued may lose its meaning. A connection you once nurtured may no longer require attention. These changes do not feel like loss because the heart has already shifted internally. This type of closing protects the heart from bitterness. When conflict is absent, resentment does not form. The heart does not need to rehearse grievances or assign blame. It moves forward cleanly. This cleanliness preserves energy for what is ahead rather than trapping it in what is behind. Another aspect of this lesson is trust. The heart trusts that not every ending needs justification. It accepts that some things complete their purpose quietly. This trust allows the heart to let go without fear of missing something essential. It understands that what is meant to remain will not require force. Quietly closing doors also reveal maturity. The heart no longer confuses attachment with commitment. It understands that staying is not always faithfulness, and leaving is not always failure. This understanding frees the heart from guilt when alignment changes. There is also humility in these closures. The heart does not assume it has outgrown others, nor does it assume others are wrong. It simply recognizes the difference. Difference does not require judgment. It requires honesty. The heart learns to honor this honesty without superiority. Often, these closures create space before anything new appears. This space can feel empty if misunderstood, but it is not emptiness, it is clearing. The heart is being relieved of what no longer fits so that it can recognize what does. Rushing to fill this space would interrupt the process. Another subtle sign of this phase is relief without excitement. When a door closes quietly, the heart may feel lighter, but not thrilled. There is calm rather than celebration. This calm indicates correctness. The heart senses that something has been resolved without damage. Quiet closures also protect others. When the heart does not force an ending, it does not wound unnecessarily. It does not leave behind confusion or hostility. This gentleness preserves dignity on both sides. The heart learns that endings can be kind. Sometimes the mind tries to reopen these doors out of habit. It may question whether the heart is being too distant or too detached. But when alignment is clear, reopening feels unnatural. The heart resists not because it is stubborn, but because it has moved on internally. This phase teaches the heart to recognize completion. Completion does not always look like achievement. Sometimes it looks like disengagement. Knowing when something is complete is a form of wisdom. The heart develops this wisdom quietly. Another important shift is that the heart becomes less afraid of change. Having experienced peaceful separation, it learns that endings do not always bring collapse. They can bring stability. This reduces anxiety around future transitions. Quiet door closures also strengthen independence. The heart learns that it does not need to stay connected to everything that once supported it. It can carry itself. This independence is not isolation. It is self-trust. As more doors close quietly, the heart becomes more selective about what it opens in the future. It does not rush into commitments. It senses alignment before entering. This discernment prevents unnecessary attachments from forming. This lesson also teaches patience. The heart waits without panic when space opens. It does not immediately seek replacement. It allows the next direction to reveal itself naturally. This patience protects sincerity. The absence of conflict is not accidental. It is intentional. Conflict creates residue. Quiet closure leaves the heart clear. A clear heart is essential for what comes next. When certain doors close without conflict, the heart is not being reduced. It is being guided away from what would eventually drain it and toward what it can carry fully. This guidance does not announce itself. It does not explain. It simply happens, and the heart follows because it recognizes truth without needing noise. Lesson 4. The heart develops a low tolerance for false movement. Something subtle but decisive changes inside. The heart can no longer tolerate movement that lacks truth. What once passed without notice now feels heavy, not sinful, not dramatic, just off. The heart senses misalignment before the mind can explain it. This sensitivity is not judgment, it is calibration. False movement does not always mean wrongdoing. Often it appears as excess, speaking when silence would be cleaner, acting when stillness would be more accurate, agreeing when honesty would be simpler. The heart begins to feel these moments as friction, not guilt, but disturbance. A quiet resistance forms, asking for correction rather than permission. This low tolerance can feel inconvenient. The heart may wish it could still move lightly through situations without feeling this internal feedback. But once awareness sharpens, the heart cannot unsee what it now recognizes. Pretending becomes tiring. Performing becomes heavy. The heart prefers fewer movements that are true over many movements that are acceptable. One of the first places this shows is speech. Words that once felt harmless begin to feel unnecessary. Not because silence is superior, but because accuracy matters more than expression. The heart begins to ask, does this need to be said, rather than, can this be said? This shift alone changes how the heart interacts with the world. The same applies to action. The heart becomes uncomfortable with busyness that has no direction. Filling time for the sake of activity feels hollow. The heart resists being occupied without purpose. This resistance is not laziness, it is integrity. The heart is learning that movement should come from alignment, not avoidance. This sensitivity also affects how the heart responds to attention. Being seen for the wrong reasons feels intrusive. Praise that does not reflect truth feels misplaced. Even admiration can feel heavy if it pulls the heart away from its center. The heart begins to value correctness over approval. Another area where false movement becomes intolerable is self-justification. The heart notices when it tries to excuse misalignment with clever reasoning. These moments become uncomfortable quickly. The heart does not accept easy explanations anymore. It wants honesty, even when honesty is inconvenient. This intolerance is often misunderstood as rigidity. From the outside, it may look like the heart has become less flexible. In reality, it has become more exact. It is not resisting life, it is resisting distortion. It wants movement to match truth, not habit. The heart also becomes sensitive to environments. Certain spaces feel draining, even if nothing is overtly wrong. Other spaces feel grounding, even if they offer nothing exciting. This sensitivity is not emotional preference, it is alignment recognition. The heart knows where it can remain intact. This change can create quiet distance from people who still move comfortably in ways the heart no longer can. This distance is not rejection, it is a difference in tolerance. The heart cannot join certain movements without losing clarity. It chooses clarity over belonging. Another sign of this lesson is that the heart becomes less forgiving of its own exaggerations. Overreacting feels embarrassing internally. Emotional inflation feels inaccurate. The heart prefers proportion. It wants reactions to match reality rather than amplify it. This proportionality brings calm. When false movement drops away, the heart stops oscillating between extremes. It no longer needs to create intensity to feel alive. Presence becomes enough. Accuracy becomes satisfying. This lesson also reshapes patience. The heart becomes willing to wait rather than act wrongly. Waiting feels cleaner than moving out of alignment. This patience is not passive, it is disciplined. The heart is protecting its inner order. Another subtle change is how the heart experiences regret. Regret decreases when false movement decreases. The heart no longer has to recover from actions it knew were off. Life becomes simpler, not easier, but clearer. This clarity can feel lonely at times, not because the heart lacks connection, but because it cannot always join a collective movement. It learns to stand still while others rush. This stillness is not withdrawal, it is discernment. The heart also becomes less tolerant of inner noise. Excess thinking, unnecessary worry, and imagined scenarios feel disruptive. The heart prefers clean awareness over constant analysis. This does not remove thought, it places it correctly. False movement often disguises itself as productivity, kindness, or caution. The heart learns to see through these disguises. It does not reject them entirely, it refines them. Productivity must be meaningful. Kindness must be sincere. Caution must be accurate. This refinement deepens trust in the heart's inner signals. The heart learns that discomfort is not always a warning to stop, but sometimes a signal to adjust. It listens carefully rather than reacting impulsively. As tolerance for false movement lowers, the heart becomes more peaceful. Peace does not come from doing less, it comes from doing what fits. The heart no longer carries the strain of pretending alignment where none exists. This lesson is not about perfection. The heart will still make mistakes, but it will recognize them sooner. Correction happens quickly, without drama. The heart does not linger in misalignment. This sensitivity stabilizes. What once felt restrictive begins to feel freeing. The heart realizes it has been released from unnecessary motion. It moves less, but more truthfully. When the heart develops a low tolerance for false movement, it is not becoming harsh, it is becoming honest. Honest with itself first, and that honesty shapes everything else. Lesson 5: Solitude feels functional, not lonely. Solitude undergoes a complete transformation. What once felt like absence begins to feel like structure. Time alone no longer asks to be filled, explained, or escaped. It becomes usable, not productive in the worldly sense, but clarifying. The heart does not retreat into solitude because it is wounded. It enters it because it can finally hear itself without distortion. Loneliness carries a sense of lack. Functional solitude carries a sense of order. In loneliness, the heart waits for something to arrive. In this solitude, the heart recognizes what is already present. The shift is subtle but decisive. The heart no longer feels abandoned by others, it feels positioned. One of the first signs of this change is relief. Not excitement, not comfort, relief. The heart feels less pulled, less interrupted, less required to perform continuity for the sake of connection. Solitude becomes a place where the heart can remain consistent rather than reactive. It does not have to adjust itself to be received. This does not mean the heart dislikes people. It simply no longer needs constant engagement to feel anchored. Interaction becomes a choice rather than a necessity. The heart enters and exits connection without losing itself. This independence is quiet, but it is strong. Functional solitude also changes how the heart experiences silence. Silence stops feeling empty. It begins to feel informative. Thoughts surface without being chased. Emotions settle without being managed. The heart learns to observe itself without urgency. This observation builds familiarity rather than judgment. Another shift occurs in how the heart rests. Rest is no longer tied to distraction. It is no longer dependent on entertainment, conversation, or stimulation. The heart can remain still without discomfort. This stillness restores energy more deeply than activity ever did. Solitude also sharpens awareness. Without constant input, the heart notices subtle movements within itself. It recognizes patterns, reactions, and intentions more clearly. This clarity does not overwhelm the heart because it is not rushed. Time stretches enough for understanding to form naturally. The heart also stops negotiating its worth. There is no audience to impress, no response to anticipate. The The heart does not feel diminished by the absence of recognition. It feels intact. This intactness creates stability that does not fluctuate with attention. Functional solitude also changes the relationship with longing. The heart still desires connection, but it is no longer desperate for it. Longing becomes clean rather than restless. The heart can wait without collapsing into need. This solitude does not isolate the heart from compassion. In fact, it often deepens it. The heart becomes more understanding of others because it understands itself better. Distance does not harden it. It refines it. Another important aspect is that the heart becomes less afraid of being alone in decisions. It does not rush to consult others just to relieve uncertainty. It listens inwardly first. This does not create arrogance. It creates responsibility. Functional solitude also reduces emotional noise. Without constant stimulation, emotions settle into proportion. The heart is not pulled into exaggerated reactions. Calm becomes the baseline rather than the exception. This solitude teaches the heart that presence does not require participation. The heart can be fully present in life without constantly engaging with it. This distinction allows the heart to conserve energy and clarity. The heart begins to protect this solitude, not obsessively, but respectfully. It does not surrender easily. It recognizes its value. This protection is not withdrawal, it is stewardship. Solitude also becomes a place where alignment is reinforced. Without external pressure, the heart can sense when it is drifting. Correction happens gently, without crisis. The heart does not need breakdowns to recalibrate. This lesson also reshapes how the heart handles waiting. Waiting no longer feels empty or wasted. It becomes a space where awareness deepens. The heart understands that not all movement is forward, and not all stillness is stagnation. Functional solitude prepares the heart for connection that is clean. When the heart re-enters relationships, it does so without hunger. It can give without trying to be filled. This changes the quality of interaction completely. The heart also becomes less reactive to separation. Temporary distance no longer triggers fear. The heart trusts its internal anchor. This trust stabilizes relationships rather than weakening them. Solitude in this form is not permanent retreat. It is training the heart to stand without leaning. Once this strength forms, the heart can lean again without collapsing. This lesson is not about becoming alone. It is about becoming whole enough that aloneness is no longer threatening. When solitude feels functional rather than lonely, the heart has crossed a quiet threshold. It is no longer surviving separation, it is using it. Lesson 6. Awareness increases before understanding. Clarity does not arrive all at once. Instead, awareness widens first. The heart begins to sense shifts without being able to name them. Something feels different in how life is approached, yet no explanation presents itself. This lack of immediate understanding is not a delay, it is a design. The heart is being prepared to hold meaning before being told what that meaning is. Awareness is heavier than understanding. Understanding comforts. Awareness unsettles. It brings responsibility without explanation. The heart feels that something is unfolding, but it is not given the relief of interpretation. This teaches the heart how to remain steady without certainty. It learns to stand in perception rather than conclusion. The heart notices patterns more than outcomes. Repeated moments begin to feel connected. Small events carry a sense of continuity. The heart starts recognizing rhythm without being shown the structure. This recognition sharpens attention. Life no longer feels random, but it does not yet feel clear. This heightened awareness often creates internal quiet. The heart listens more than it speaks. It watches more than it reacts. Not because it is withdrawn, but because it senses that premature response would distort what is forming. The heart learns restraint not as discipline, but as instinct. One of the challenges of this phase is resisting the urge to explain everything. The mind wants definition. It wants labels, conclusions, and reassurance. But the heart senses that explanation would shrink the experience. It chooses to carry the weight of not knowing rather than force meaning too early. This gap between awareness and understanding trains patience at a deep level. Not the patience of waiting for comfort, but the patience of allowing truth to mature. The heart learns that insight ripens in silence, not under pressure. It learns to trust timing rather than urgency. Another sign of this phase is that the heart becomes less reactive to confusion. Confusion no longer triggers panic. It becomes a signal that something is reorganizing internally. The heart does not rush to escape uncertainty. It stays present within it. Awareness without understanding also humbles the heart. It realizes that perception does not equal control. Seeing more does not mean managing more. The heart learns to witness without interfering. This humility protects sincerity. This phase can feel heavy because awareness carries responsibility. The heart cannot unsee what it sees. It becomes accountable to its perception even before it knows how to act on it. This accountability shapes character quietly. The heart learns discernment. It recognizes which signals require response and which require patience. Not every awareness demands action. Some demand containment. This discernment prevents overwhelm. Another subtle shift is that the heart stops asking others to interpret its experience. Advice feels insufficient. Explanations feel shallow. The heart understands that what it is sensing cannot yet be shared meaningfully. It holds it privately. This privacy is not secrecy, it is protection. Awareness without understanding is fragile. Exposure too early can distort it. The heart learns to shelter what is forming. During this phase, the heart may feel slightly out of step with others. Conversations that rely on certainty may feel distant. The heart is not confused, it is unresolved. This unresolved state is intentional. Awareness also sharpens conscience. The heart becomes sensitive to misalignment even when it cannot explain why something feels off. It trusts this sensitivity without demanding proof. This trust strengthens inner guidance. Another effect is that the heart becomes less interested in predictions. It stops trying to foresee outcomes. It focuses on presence instead. This presence stabilizes it amid uncertainty. As awareness deepens, the heart becomes quieter internally. Thoughts slow, judgments soften. The heart holds complexity without needing to simplify it prematurely. This capacity increases depth. Understanding does arrive, but differently than expected. It does not come as a sudden answer. It arrives as recognition. The heart realizes it already knows. The understanding was forming underneath awareness all along. This delayed understanding is stronger because it is integrated rather than imposed. It does not need reinforcement. It settles naturally. The heart does not question it. Awareness before understanding teaches the heart how to live without constant clarity. This skill is essential. A heart that needs understanding to move cannot carry depth. A heart that can move with awareness alone becomes resilient. This phase also reduces dependency on certainty. The heart no longer needs to know where it is going to know how to walk. It trusts alignment more than destination. The heart becomes comfortable with partial knowing. It does not demand completion. It allows life to unfold without interruption. This allowance deepens trust. Awareness increases before understanding, so that the heart learns how to listen rather than conclude. Listening is where transformation happens. When the heart can hold awareness without understanding, it has developed maturity. It no longer needs answers to remain faithful to alignment. Lesson 7. The heart stops asking to be confirmed. One of the final and most subtle shifts takes place. The need for confirmation dissolves. Not suddenly and not through force, but gently, as if the heart has grown tired of asking questions it no longer needs answered. The heart does not become certain about everything. Instead, it becomes settled without needing certainty. Confirmation is often mistaken for clarity. In reality, it is usually reassurance. It asks to be seen, agreed with, mirrored, or affirmed. A heart that still seeks confirmation looks outward to steady itself. A heart that has been quietly chosen begins to steady itself inwardly. This does not mean the heart becomes closed or dismissive of others. It simply no longer depends on external alignment to validate its direction. Agreement becomes welcome, but unnecessary. Disagreement becomes tolerable, but not destabilizing. The heart no longer shifts its course every time it encounters resistance. One of the first signs of this change is silence after a decision. The heart makes a choice and does not feel compelled to explain it. Not because it is hiding, but because explanation feels like dilution. The heart knows that what led it here cannot be transferred through words. It does not need to be defended to remain true. This phase often feels lonely at first, not because the heart is alone, but because it no longer participates in the familiar exchange of validation. Conversations that revolve around approval, reassurance, or consensus begin to feel distant. The heart is not superior, it is simply finished asking. When the heart stops asking to be confirmed, it also stops rehearsing its choices internally. There is no longer a loop of justification playing in the background. The heart is quiet because it is no longer arguing with itself. This quiet is a sign of alignment, not certainty. Another shift is that doubt changes its role. Doubt does not disappear, but it loses authority. It is no longer allowed to interrogate every step. The heart acknowledges doubt without obeying it. This balance creates steadiness without rigidity. The heart also becomes less reactive to misunderstanding. When others misinterpret its actions or intentions, the heart does not rush to correct them. It recognizes that being understood by everyone is neither possible nor necessary. This acceptance frees immense energy. This does not mean the heart becomes careless about impact. It remains attentive to harm and responsibility. But it no longer confuses being misunderstood with being wrong. This distinction is critical. It allows the heart to remain ethical without becoming defensive. Another sign of this lesson is that the heart becomes comfortable moving quietly. It does not announce growth. It does not broadcast intention. It allows results, if any, to speak on their own. This restraint protects sincerity. The heart also becomes less impressed by recognition when it arrives. Praise feels light. Criticism feels distant. Neither has the power to alter direction. This does not come from indifference. It comes from grounding. Grounding replaces validation. The heart feels anchored internally. It knows where it stands, even when no one else does. This knowledge is not loud. It does not assert itself. It simply remains. When confirmation is no longer sought, comparison loses relevance. The heart does not measure its path against others. It understands that alignment is personal. What fits one heart may distort another. This understanding dissolves envy and defensiveness simultaneously. Another subtle change is that the heart stops asking for signs constantly. It listens instead. It recognizes that guidance does not always arrive as reassurance. Sometimes it arrives as quiet persistence. The heart learns to trust continuity over confirmation. This phase also brings a new relationship with mistakes. When the heart errs, it corrects without collapse. It does not seek external forgiveness to feel whole again. It returns inwardly and adjusts. This resilience strengthens trust in itself. The heart also becomes less persuasive. It does not feel the need to convince others of its view. Truth no longer needs to be sold. It can exist without consensus. This reduces tension in interaction. Another sign is that the heart becomes selective about sharing. It does not expose its inner movements prematurely, not out of fear, but out of care. What is forming inside is allowed to complete itself before being spoken. This discretion deepens maturity. The heart understands that not everything that is true needs to be expressed. Some truths are structural, not communicative. They shape being rather than conversation. As confirmation seeking fades, trust takes its place. Trust not in outcome, not in recognition, but in placement. The heart trusts where it is being held. This trust stabilizes it through uncertainty. The heart notices that it no longer asks, "Is this right?" as often. It asks instead, "Is this honest?" Honesty becomes the metric, not approval. This shift marks a deep internal alignment. When the heart stops asking to be confirmed, it becomes lighter, not because burdens vanish, but because resistance does. The heart is no longer fighting to be seen, understood, or validated. It simply moves. This movement is calm. It does not rush. It does not pause unnecessarily. It follows what feels correct without needing reinforcement. This is not blind faith. It is settled awareness. A heart that no longer seeks confirmation can carry responsibility quietly. It does not need encouragement to continue, nor praise to persist. It acts because alignment exists, not because response is guaranteed. This is one of the clearest signs of quiet selection. The heart has learned to stand without leaning. It does not reject connection, but it does not depend on it to remain intact. When the heart stops asking to be confirmed, it has reached a form of inner independence. Not separation from others, but stability within itself. This stability is not the end of the path. It is the ground from which everything else can unfold without distortion. And when a heart reaches this place, it does not announce it. It simply continues steady, aligned, and unshaken. If these signs felt familiar, it is not because they announce themselves clearly, but because the heart recognizes what it has already been living. Quiet selection does not separate you from the world. It reshapes how you move within it. Nothing dramatic is required. Nothing needs to be proven. What has been placed within you is being carried without witnesses, without confirmation, and without noise. That is not absence. It is trust being built slowly, layer by layer. Allow it to continue without interruption. Do not search for reassurance where alignment already exists. Walk gently with what you have been given. What is chosen in silence does not need to speak loudly to endure.